Olivia, a renowned heart surgeon, always taught her son about the importance of integrity. But when an unexpected proposition tests her values, she finds herself facing a decision that could change everything. In an environment where right and wrong are intertwined, Olivia will need to find the strength to do what is just, even if it costs her what she loves most. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is the Linda's Stories channel. I hope you enjoy this story. Olivia woke up early as usual. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon when she was already up, preparing breakfast for herself and Mark, her 16-year-old son. While the water boiled, she looked out the kitchen window, watching the sky turn shades of orange. It was a new day at the hospital, and she knew it would be intense as always. "Mum, have you seen my biology book?" Mark asked, entering the kitchen still sleepy. Olivia smiled, pointing to the table in the living room. "It's there, where you left it last night. Remember to organise your things before going to bed. It makes things much easier in the morning." Mark nodded, grabbing the book and heading back to the kitchen. "Thanks, Mum. Do you have a surgery today?" "Yes, two, actually," Olivia replied, pouring coffee. "One in the morning and another in the afternoon. Complicated cases, but nothing we can't handle." While they had breakfast, Olivia took the opportunity to talk with her son about school, his friends, and his plans for the future. Mark, just like his mother, had a strong sense of ethics and dreamed of pursuing a career in the health sector, possibly medicine. "Remember, Mark," Olivia said before they left, "no matter what you choose to do in life, always do it with integrity. It's what defines us in the end." Mark smiled, hugging his mother. "I know, Mum. You taught me well." At the hospital, Olivia was received with the usual respect. Nurses, doctors, and even patients greeted her with warm smiles. She was known not only for her exceptional skill as a cardiac surgeon, but also for her compassion and unwavering ethics. Sarah, a nurse who had worked with Olivia for years, approached her with a worried expression. "Dr. Olivia, do you have a minute?" Olivia noticed the unease in Sarah's voice. "Sure, Sarah. What's going on?" Sarah looked around, making sure they were alone. "It's about the meeting Dr. Henry scheduled with you for this afternoon. I've heard some strange things. I just wanted to warn you to be careful." Olivia frowned, intrigued. "What kind of strange things?" "I'm not sure, but it seems to involve some adjustments in the hospital procedures. I just thought you should be prepared." Thanking Sarah, Olivia headed to her first surgery of the day, but the nurse's words echoed in her mind. What could be so serious that Sarah seemed so worried? The morning passed quickly with Olivia focused on her patients. Her first surgery was a success, and she was preparing for the second one when she received a message from Dr. Henry, asking to move the meeting up to lunchtime. With a sigh, Olivia agreed. She would have to postpone her lunch, but she was curious to know what the hospital director wanted to discuss so urgently. Upon entering Dr. Henry's office, Olivia immediately noticed the tension in the air. The director, usually jovial and laid back, seemed nervous and agitated. "Olivia, I'm so glad you could come," he said, gesturing for her to sit down. "We have a very important matter to discuss." Olivia settled in, maintaining a neutral expression. "I'm listening, Dr. Henry." The director cleared his throat, adjusting his tie. "Well, Olivia, you know that the hospital has been facing some financial difficulties lately." She nodded. It was common knowledge that the hospital was going through a rough period, with budget cuts and staff reductions. "The situation is more serious than we imagined," Dr. Henry continued. "We are on the brink of a crisis that could seriously compromise the functioning of the hospital." Olivia felt a tightness in her chest. The hospital was her second home, and the thought of seeing it in trouble disturbed her deeply. "What can we do?" she asked, leaning forward. Dr. Henry hesitated for a moment and then spoke quickly, as if wanting to get something off his chest. "We need to increase our revenue, and for that we need to adjust some of our procedures." Olivia frowned. "Adjust how?" Well, the director continued, avoiding looking directly at her, we're considering creating some more complex diagnoses for certain cases. This would allow us to charge more expensive procedures to the health insurance plans. The shock of the revelation hit Olivia like a punch in the stomach. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. Are you suggesting that we falsify medical reports? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Dr. Henry made a gesture of appeasement with his hands. It's not quite like that, Olivia. We're just optimizing our resources. It's for the survival of the hospital. Olivia stood up, feeling a mixture of anger and disappointment. This is fraud, Dr. Henry. It's unethical and illegal. I can't believe you're asking me to be a part of this. The director also stood up, his expression hardening. Olivia, be reasonable. We're talking about the survival of the hospital. Think of all the patients who depend on us, the jobs that will be lost if we close. And think of the patients who will undergo unnecessary procedures, the risks they will face, Olivia retorted. This goes against everything we vowed to protect as doctors. Dr. Henry sighed, running his hand through his hair. Look, Olivia, I understand your concern, but think about it. If you help us with this, I can guarantee a promotion, a substantial raise. You could provide an even better life for Mark. The mention of her son's name made Olivia shudder. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine what she could do with that extra money. A bigger house, maybe. A more robust savings for Mark's college. But then, the image of her son came to mind, along with the words she always repeated to him. Integrity is what defines us in the end. No, she said firmly. I can't do this. I won't do this. Dr. Henry's expression changed from pleading to something darker. Olivia, think carefully. If you're not with us on this, you're against us. Your career here could become very difficult. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine, but she remained firm. I'm willing to take that risk, Dr. Henry. I'd rather lose my job than lose my integrity. With that, she turned and left the office, leaving a furious Dr. Henry behind. The following days were tense at the hospital. Olivia noticed strange looks, conversations that stopped when she approached. She tried to focus on her work, on her patients, but she couldn't ignore the feeling that something was very wrong. It was during a routine surgery that Olivia noticed it for the first time. The patient's chart indicated a condition much more severe than the tests showed. Initially, she thought it might be a mistake, but then she began to notice a pattern. Patients with mild conditions were being diagnosed with more serious problems. Simple procedures were being replaced with more complex and expensive interventions. The scheme that Dr. Henry had proposed was in full swing, with or without his participation. Olivia felt sick. As a doctor, she had sworn to protect her patients, to do the best for them. What was happening at the hospital was a direct violation of that oath. That night at home, Olivia barely touched her dinner. Mark noticed his mother's concern. Mum, is everything all right? He asked, his voice full of worry. Olivia looked at her son, seeing in him all the innocence and integrity she had always tried to cultivate. How could she remain silent in the face of what was happening? Mark, she said softly, sometimes in life we face difficult situations. Situations where doing the right thing can cost us dearly. Mark nodded, listening attentively. But in the end, Olivia continued, our integrity is all we have. It is what defines us as people. What's happening, Mum? Mark asked, his voice serious. Olivia sighed. I'm facing a difficult situation at work. I discovered something wrong, something that's harming the patients, and now I have to decide what to do. Mark took his mother's hand. You always taught me to do the right thing no matter what. I know you will make the right decision. Mark's words gave Olivia the courage she needed. The next morning, she arrived at the hospital determined. Her first stop was at Sarah's office, the nurse who had alerted her. Sarah, I need your help, Olivia said, closing the door behind her. I'm gathering evidence about the fraud scheme in the hospital. Can you help me collect more information? Sarah nodded, her face a mixture of relief and determination. It was about time someone did something about this. You can count on me, Dr. Olivia. In the following weeks, Olivia and Sarah worked discreetly, collecting evidence, documenting suspicious cases. It was a stressful period, with Olivia constantly looking over her shoulder, fearing being discovered. Finally, with a complete dossier in hand, Olivia knew it was time to act. She scheduled a meeting with the hospital's board of directors, knowing it was an all-or-nothing situation. On the morning of the meeting, Olivia hugged Mark tightly before leaving the house. Whatever happens today, son, I want you to know that I'm doing this for you, to show you that we must always fight for what is right. Mark smiled proudly. I know, Mum. You are my greatest example. At the hospital, the tension was palpable. Olivia entered the conference room with her head held high, facing the curious and, in some cases, hostile gazes. Gentlemen, she began, her voice firm despite the nervousness she felt. I called this meeting because I discovered something very serious happening in our hospital. For 2 hours, Olivia presented her evidence. She showed tampered medical records, inflated bills, unnecessary procedures. With each revelation, she saw the shock and indignation growing on the faces of the board members. Dr. Henry, present at the meeting, tried to intervene several times but was silenced by the other members. When Olivia finished her presentation, the silence in the room was deafening. The chairman of the board was the first to speak. Dr. Olivia, I deeply appreciate you bringing this to our attention. What you did today took immense courage. In the days that followed, the hospital entered a sort of controlled chaos. Dr. Henry and several other administrators were immediately dismissed. An external audit was called to investigate the extent of the scheme. For Olivia, these were days of uncertainty. While many congratulated her for her bravery, she also faced hostility from colleagues who felt betrayed or feared losing their jobs. A week after the revelation, Olivia was called back to the board's office. With her heart in her throat, she entered, not knowing what to expect. The chairman welcomed her with a tired but genuine smile. Dr. Olivia, once again, we want to thank you for your integrity and courage. What you did saved this hospital from an even greater disaster. Olivia nodded, anticipating the but that would surely follow. We are restructuring the hospital administration, the chairman continued, and we would like to invite you to head the new Department of Medical Ethics and Compliance. Olivia blinked, surprised. I don't know what to say. Say yes, the president smiled. We need someone with your integrity and courage to ensure that something like this never happens again. That night, Olivia came home exhausted, but with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. Mark was waiting for her, anxious. So, Mum, how did it go? Olivia smiled, hugging her son. It was tough, son, but we did the right thing. And you know what? In the end, that's what really matters. Seated at the kitchen table, mother and son talked about the events of the past few weeks. Olivia spoke about her new position, the challenges that lay ahead, but also about the feeling of having made a difference. You know, Mark, she said, holding her son's hand, there was a moment when I almost gave in to temptation. I thought about the extra money, about what we could do with it. Mark squeezed his mother's hand. But you didn't give in. No, Olivia smiled, because I remembered what I always taught you, that our integrity is our greatest wealth, that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, is what defines us as people. Mark nodded, his eyes shining with admiration. You are amazing, Mum. When I grow up, I want to be like you. Olivia felt tears in her eyes. You are already amazing, son, and I know you will always do the right thing, no matter what. In the months that followed, the hospital underwent a major transformation. Under Olivia's leadership in the new ethics department, new policies were implemented, Trainings were conducted, and a culture of transparency and integrity began to develop. It wasn't easy. There was resistance, distrust, and moments when Olivia questioned whether she had made the right choice. But every time she saw a patient receiving the correct treatment, every time a colleague came to thank her for the positive change, she knew she had done the right thing. A year after the events that changed the hospital, Olivia was in her new office reviewing some documents when Mark appeared at the door. "Hey, Mom," he said, coming in with a smile. "I brought you a snack. I thought you might be hungry." Olivia smiled, grateful for her son's thoughtfulness. "Thanks, dear. How was school today?" Mark sat down, his face serious. "It was interesting. We had a class about ethics in science. It made me think a lot about you and what happened here." Olivia tilted her head, curious. "Really? And what did you think?" "I thought about how easy it is for people to justify doing wrong things when they believe it's for a greater good," Mark said thoughtfully. "But I also thought about how a brave person can make all the difference." Olivia felt her chest swell with pride. "You're right, son. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to stand up for what's right." If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.